So this week we're talking about fall into the all, the soul searching part of that. Examining if our actions are consistent with who we've come here to be. So last week we talked about letting go of those things that no longer serve us. And today we want to talk about really what is soul searching. It's defined as examining one's conscience, especially as related to motives and values. So as we fall into the all, it's especially important today that we're truly being who we are and that we have our actions in alignment with what we do. If we truly fall into the all, we have to authentically be who we are and actually be in alignment with what our values say we want to be. So last week we talked about those trees that release the leaves and they don't hang on and they're just absolutely easily readily let go of things. Well, this week I want you to consider, do you think that a mom actually wants to be a petunia? That's really, I don't know for sure, but I doubt it. I have no way to prove that because I don't really know what's in the mind of a plant. But plants don't really spend time attempting to be somebody that they're not or something that they're not. That seems to be a human trait. But before we get too far into our message today, the question for this week is this. What's the one choice that you might make today to be consciously aware that the more true you are to who you are, the closer you are to that dream that lives inside of you? So one more time. What's the one choice that you can make today to be consciously aware that the more true you are to who you are, the closer you are to that dream that lives inside of you? And what I know is that I want that dream that's inside of me to be fully expressed. And humans, with all our intelligence, aren't always using our intelligence wisely. Whatever the reason, we attempt to be somebody we're not. We attempt to be like somebody that we admire. Maybe we do that because of some self-worth issues, but what's important is that this message is all about soul searching and learning who you are. The soul is that spiritual or immaterial part of a human being. An alternate definition in the dictionary is that it's our emotional or intelligent energy or our intensity. And searching is about seeking or looking to find something. So soul searching has become a thing because humans start looking to find who they really are. And we're frequently looking to find that part of ourselves, that emotional, intellectual energy that we have, the intensity of who we are, so that we can live our lives and be content with the way we're living. Now, soul searching is a kind of an interesting pair because typically we can only search for something that's lost. And our souls are really never lost. Now, they might be hidden behind some layers of self-worth or some layers of something else, but they're not really lost. Because unlike plants, humans do sometimes seek to be somebody they're not. And in that seeking to be who we aren't, we forget the essence of who we are. I want to say that one more time. In that seeking to be somebody that we're really not, we sometimes forget or lose who it is that we really are as us, this unique individual, this unique expression of the divine. So seeking or pretending to be somebody that we were never meant to be on this planet goes sometimes deep within us, and sometimes I'm not really certain what all the reasons are that that happens. But however small, whenever we are not genuinely who we are losing a little bit of who we are in that soul. So soul searching happens to be unique to humans. And what's common to most soul searching is that it takes time to reflect on what we really want and who we really want to be. It's about discovering those parts of us that maybe haven't been showing up for us lately. It typically involves honest examination and assessment of our motivations, of our beliefs, of our values, of our emotions around life on a daily basis. And often what I find is people begin to soul search when they want deeper meaning to their lives. So they've been going along and things have been okay, or there's been nothing that has upset the apple cart, we might say. But all of a sudden there's some type of discontent that shows up. And that's when I think we start soul searching. Soul searching is about diving into those deeper crevices of our being and looking at not only the good of who we are, but maybe those parts that we might consider a little bit bad or a little bit ugly. It's about the whole being of who we are. And I consider that living on purpose. So when you think about living on purpose for yourself, what does it mean? It's not about inching into the shallow end of the pool. It's about diving into the deep end, about having to be in that spot where you maybe can't touch the bottom, and either learning to float or to sink. Now, what I know is that the divine is always right where we are. So sinking does not have to be an option. It's only an option when we decide to get out of the boat or out of those arms of the divine that are keeping us lifted up. And hey, sometimes we do just that. But when we're soul searching, what we're doing really is taking a journey to awakening. Think about that for a minute. We're actually on a journey to awakening. In the science of mind, very often we read about our souls being on this pathway of an endless and ever expanding experience. Wow, an endless and ever expanding experience. A journey to finding who we are, what we were created as. And remember, we were created as individual expressions of the divine. Wow, individual expressions of the divine. So along this path, we have to learn to allow more of that divine nature of who we are to show up and to be revealed in how we are being on this planet. One more time. As we're on that journey, what's important is allowing that divine nature to show up. Part of our spiritual soul searching is to allow us to find more love or more joy or more freedom or more peace or more calm. Whatever it is that you know is the essence of what your heart sings. Everybody in this community knows, for me, that's joy. But for you, it might be love, it might be freedom, it might be peace. But when we're soul searching, we're finding that whatever that quality of God is, how we can live in it, at least most of the time. I'm sure we've each had moments in our lives when we've noticed that there were turning points. Something that happened that had a huge impact on what we were believing or how we were living our lives. And for me, one of those turning points was when my son died, and he was quite young, 27, which to me is quite young. And what I recognized was that he lived his entire life knowing that his life was going to be short. So he took advantage of every day. Now, for a mother, that was not always the way I wanted him to live, but he lived life with gusto. And when he died, I started thinking about how I was living. And what I realized was I was living my life on autopilot. So it was a time when I started looking and I started doing some soul searching. There's a great quote in A Design of New Living that Ernest Holmes wrote, and I want to read it to you right now. God is not lost, neither can we ever be. We never need to prepare to meet our God. We are meeting him every day. What we do need to do, and what we will always be doing, is expressing more and more of his nature through ourselves. This is the endless pathway. This is the immortal and eternal endeavor, the continual upward spiraling of our awareness of God as we are. God as we are. So if we're going to meet our God every day, and we desire to express more and more of God's nature through us as we show up for ourselves and for other people on this planet, how do we go about doing that? And as I was thinking about that, I realized it's a long time since I used the Reverend Larry's top 11 tips on whatever the topic is. So I decided this week that that's exactly what I would do. So this is Reverend Larry's top 11 tips on soul searching. The first one is spend time alone to determine who you are. If you don't know who you are, soul searching is about finding out who is that person. And usually that requires us to disconnect from all of the technology that's in our lives, sometimes disconnecting from all of the social media, and just spending some quiet time with ourselves. And I'm going to encourage you, if that quiet time with yourself is uncomfortable, spend more quiet time with yourself, because it's in the discomfort that we start recognizing what it is we need and what it is we want. Number 2, know who you want to be. So once you figure out who you are right now, who is it that you want to be? If you don't understand who you want to be or where you're heading, it's like going out, getting in your car and starting it and having no destination. You're just going to sit there for a while you decide where you're going to go. And I think we do that sometimes in our lives. So working towards living our life on purpose is how we find our joy, our bliss, our blessings in life. So figure out who you want to be. The next is to experience the world authentically as you. Now this third tip is really important because it's focusing on living your life authentically as you want to live it. We can be so impacted by external factors, things that other people tell us about who we should be. Ever been shoulded on? It's a interesting concept, and sometimes those shoulds come from our parents or from long-standing internal beliefs that we've picked up. When you're authentically you, you have a deeper relationship with yourself and therefore can have a deeper relationship with other people. Tip number 4, have a passion. Do what makes your heart sing. So if you love to dance or to cook or to sew or to paint, do it. Find some time to do it. A lot of times we let the things that we really want to do go by the wayside because we decide we don't have time for them. They're low on our priority list. But the thing is, when we do something that's passionate for us, like for me, it's singing and playing the piano. When I do that, I connect with my soul. I figure out in those moments of doing the things that I'm passionate about more deeply who I am and what I really want in the world. So remember to do what it is you want to do. So tip number 5 is focus on joy, freedom, peace, love, whatever that God quality is that we were talking about earlier. We know that what goes around comes around. And in this philosophy, we say what we focus on, we get more of. We also say what you give, you receive, it's returned to you multiplied abundantly. So if you know that the essence of who you are is joy, then live joyfully. If you know that it's freedom, then express freedom. Show other people how to live freely, being themselves. Process through whatever is keeping you from being free or joyful or feeling calm or loving. Let go of it really quickly and get back to that state of being that you know is the essence of who you are. Tip number 6, be persistent. Life is a journey, not a destination. No matter how difficult or how wonderful today may seem, we have to remember that this too shall pass. The not so good and the great, they pass. And the important thing is that we stay in the essence of who we are, that we live from the joy or the freedom or the peace or the ease. Tip number 7, seek to inspire and be inspired. Inspired, living in spirit. One of the surest ways to have joyful days or free days is to be inspired. To be deliberate about finding the beauty in the day, to be deliberate about finding the good in the day, to be deliberate about finding something that makes your heart really sing. And that is living in spirit. Tip number 8, I'm not so good at this one. Take care of yourself and achieve balance. It's easy for us to romanticize about letting one part of our life be more important than all the rest of the aspects of our lives. It's interesting how often we think that we're more important than we are in some area, that they need me to do this, only I'm the one that can do that. And when we get into that state of being, what we forget is we're not allowing other people to do things where they might shine and things that we might not even enjoy doing. So let each day feel special and do something for yourself each day that reminds you that you are that expression of the divine and you deserve to feel love and joy and peace. Tip number 9. This is an important one. Focus on what you can control. And by the way, what you can control is only you. You can't control all the things that are happening in the world. You can't control how other people react to things. The only thing that you really have control over is your thoughts, your actions, how you're being in the world. And if you're going to spend time worrying about other people and how they're behaving, whether it be individuals or institutions or whatever, you're going to spend a lot of time not living the joy of who you are. So just recognize that there are some things out of your control and accept them. Now, that's not to say that we can't do things that might shift those things. For example, I encourage everybody to vote. We might not have control over the government, but we do have a way that we can influence things by voting. So get out there and vote. Tip number 10. Adopt new spiritual practices and continue to do your old ones. Spiritual practices awaken parts of you that you might not know exist. If you sit in meditation and really listen to what the divine has to say, you might be guided to do something that you never before had the courage to do. There are practices that maybe will shift you into being slightly different person. Listening is a spiritual practice. Forgiving is a spiritual practice. And forgiving releases us from being the jailer at the door of the jail of the thing, the act, or the person that we haven't yet forgiven. And not only that, when we are not forgiving, we are actually drinking our own poison. We're creating within us something that is not letting go of the things that aren't serving us. So carve out some very specific time for spiritual practices. And by the way, spiritual practices can be those things that we talked about earlier that make your heart sing. You can be playing the piano and it can be a spiritual practice. You can be cooking and it can be a spiritual practice. Anything that you do can become a spiritual practice. So think about that. The next time that you're washing dishes, maybe, it can be a spiritual practice. It becomes a spiritual practice when you become so in tune with what you're doing that you know that it's the divine flowing through you that's doing it as you. So remember 10. Spiritual practice is really important. And 11, which is last but definitely not the least, find partners for support. We humans are social by nature. Now, I know that some people like to be alone more than others, but we all want to have meaningful relationships. And sometimes building new relationships brings new ideas into our lives, and they show us a part of us that maybe we didn't even know existed. They show us that maybe perhaps we have more patience or less patience than we thought we did. And so it allows us to work on patience if it's less patience. We need other people. Other people can hold us accountable for what we say and do. Other people can say, you know, you said that you wanted to do this and this was important to you, but you haven't done it at all in the last month. And that's a great thing, particularly when you ask one of your friends to hold you accountable for something. I was on a call today and somebody was talking about the fact that I had asked her to hold me accountable to do something on a daily basis. And she just sends me a little text every day to remind me. And it's so kind, and I always feel cared about, that she cares enough about me to remember, and it helps me to remember to do something that actually I want to be doing. Relationships and people that we care about provide us that source of connection with other people, with the one life that's God's life, that's all of our lives. And when things get tough, those relationships can provide us for people to help us through the tough times. So begin to feel what it is that you want day to day. What parts of you feel satisfied? What parts of you are very dissatisfied? Where do you have room to grow? Consider, if you were to list your core values and what you think are your core values, how much do your actions on a daily basis show that those are your core values to the world? Or do you say this is really important to you, but then you don't do anything about it? Soul searching isn't an evaluation of just the internal self, though. It's also an evaluation of how we relate to the world, which is why it's so important that we have our actions be in alignment with what our values are. So I have a few questions for you that you might consider during the week. How might I like to achieve and be who I want to be in this world? How might I like to achieve being who I want to be in this world? How does everyday life support or diminish my values? Sometimes we do things every day that are diminishing who we think of ourselves to be. So just keep that in mind as you move through your day. Are the relationships that I've chosen to be in actually helping me grow into the person I want to be? Or do those relationships keep me stuck? If you're with anybody that is not uplifting who you are on this planet, they don't need to be your friend. It's important that we surround ourselves with people that know how to uplift who we are and who we want to be. How am I authentically representing myself hour to hour, day to day? Once you've answered those questions about your life, consider how you can align your spiritual practices so that you can really get into the depth of who you are. You have been doing a lot of soul searching through those questions, and they allow you to figure out what is your soul's purpose. So I want to end with a quote from The Oversoul, which is one of Ralph Waldo Emerson's essays. And it's this: within man is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty, to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one. Challenge yourself this week to notice, are my actions in alignment with my values? Am I being who I say I want to be on this world? And check in every day to see if indeed you're making the choices each day to be consciously aware that the more true you are to who you are, the closer you are to that dream that lives inside of you. So let's pray. Just connecting with that expression of the divine that you are. Recognizing that God is joy and love and freedom. Joy is all of the possible wonderful things that we can imagine. That God is all that we could ever imagine on this planet that is good and beautiful and peaceful and calm. And know that all of that is in the depths of your soul. And as you go searching and go diving into the deep end of your soul, you are going to be able to see out from that for miles and miles and miles of the essence of you, who you are. What I know to be the truth is that each of us wants to live on purpose. Each of us wants to be who we came here to be. We want our actions to be in alignment with what it is we say we value. And sometimes it means a shift of our values, and sometimes it means a shift of our actions. But whatever it means, what I know is the truth is that we are each these beautiful expressions of the divine, showing up on this planet to be part of the one. And I am so grateful that I know that the God without is the God within each of us. I am so grateful to know that each of us come together to make up that whole, that wise intelligence, that wise silence, that universal beauty, that eternal one. So it's from all that gratitude that I just release this into the law of mind, spirit, and action. Because what I absolutely know to be the truth is that God's already called it good. That God is that wind beneath our wings. God is that support for us when we dive into the deep end. That God has already said yes to everything that's a dream within our being. And all we need to do is to accept the yes. So I just say amen, and we can affirm it together. And so it is.